Oh, ze zit hier al.
Dan hebben we de echte bereikt als dat zo is. Dat is een resultaat nu. Klopt. Ja. Bezig met purificatie. Voor je foto's.
Oh, ja. Heb je het koud?
Soms, maar nu...
Ik heb al eens een dekje voor je.
Nee, dat is lekker. Dat is goed.
Een heel mooi dekje.
Oké, ze wil echt frisse lucht. Oké. Hij was de auto-regisseur. Dat was een kant.
Wat zei je?
De auto-regisseur.
Oh ja.
Die volgend jaar de foto.
Dan lak.
Ja, ik heb er zo, maar ik heb het gelezen.
Dat moet je toch helemaal niet willen proberen als je ouder dan 14 bent.
Ik kan het wel. Goed. Ja, hij doet het ook beter. Allemaal niet. Ja, die moet echt
Laat maar tot de grap.
Je maakt het ook niet mee.
So make yourselves comfortable. In a few minutes, not just yet, because I just had one. Chuku kuntu zongbo gompo yi dorji sempa garab dorji dang shere singe badu shin labde dedam avzan tata tusum chi dzogchen jupe lama la solwa deb ergin pema junila solwa Doji chang chi tilo narudang. Marpa mila gompo tsatsapa. Na pupadang palden drupa suk. Kargyu lama namla solwa deb. Dzogchen lama namla solwa deb. Ochen lama namla solwa deb. Shakchen lama namla solwa deb. Nyandu dang yungdrun lama namla solwa deb. Falcon du zhang dang yerme pa gungarab dorjijin tragpa jetidang nisume pai palamanam chetinte chong. Did you have a nice rest over lunch? A little relaxing, maybe? Any questions arising in this moment? Yes.
A question about the sound hum. Is it as well possible to sound this sound on somebody else or not? Or do you have to do it yourself, by yourself?
Do it yourself by yourself. How would you sound it on someone else? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, I do something with sound, and sometimes I sound on people, and hum can be a sound that I...
Yet do not use this on people. This is to a different purpose. There are many different practices, but without actually understanding how each and every one of them works, it's better not to mix them. Look, Dharma is not safe. Never was. It is quite possible to do yourselves a mischief by misunderstanding the instructions or not following them. You've heard of an illness called lung. You can give yourself a bad case of lung, which is simply a matter of your chi moving in a disordered direction or rising too fast. It's really quite uncomfortable. If you practice without enough relaxation, too tightly, you're likely to give yourself a case of lung. It's pretty common oops. The antidote is pasta with lots of cheese and beer. Heavy, solid food that drops your lung, carbohydrates, that drops your chi into your digestion, and beer that relaxes the channels.
Can I also eat it with wine?
Yes, wine will work, but a good live beer has also the carbohydrates. Yes.
Yes, also about home, when you do it to buildings and other things, you do it just to the buildings on the outside, the material, or also on the buildings on more or less the imaginary inside.
It goes right through the whole thing in a straight line of sight from you to infinity and takes everything out. You don't have to specifically imagine the inside. You're working on what you see with your eyes, as if it was on a screen projected, like a movie screen. And the hung goes right through the screen and takes out a little circle of it.
So when I practice, I can just imagine imagine the building and do it with that?
No, you do it with what you see with your eyes.
Always.
Yes. With your eyes open.
Okay.
Sitting somewhere, you send it out to strike the things you see with your eyes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it possible to practice that without saying it out loud? For example,
It
when
is
you're
not.
Okay. In an apartment, maybe not. Yeah. Okay.
Go to the park.
You mentioned something about Western people who are not adjusted to Sambhogakaya. You said it in the last part of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some recognition of it because when you're talking about emptiness, etc., when I experienced emptiness, sometimes it feels a little bit cold. It feels a little bit very empty. So I understood what you meant.
Then you also would benefit by doing the mani practice
Okay.
rather than the hung practice. The mani practice will lead your attention directly to the vital, luminous quality of Sambhogakaya. And if you think you might be missing that, if you go to the infinite open awareness, which is also called emptiness, and you find it to be dark or cold or something like that, then spend some time with the manis, doing that practice to bring your attention to include the Sambhogakaya nature of the Dharmakaya, because they're really not separate. But we will tend to separate everything as sentient beings. That's what sentient beings do. They disassociate. They make separations. Especially separating themselves from everything. Other questions? Yes?
I tend to feel a lot of fatigue or tiredness. Is there any kind of...
How are you sitting?
Sitting, lying down doesn't matter.
No, when you practice, how do you sit? In what position do you sit to practice?
Something like this. Like, my knees don't touch the ground, so I put a pillow here.
Yeah, your back is curved. That will cause fatigue to pervade your life. So you want to get a backrest for your sitting seat. You want to raise your ass slightly higher than it is so that your weight is further forward on your butt, so that it actually falls right where your buttocks joins your thighs rather than back on your tailbone. When you do this and place a support like a pillow behind a backrest on your lumbar, it will bring your shoulders back. And if you change your posture like this long term for sitting and practicing, you will find your daily fatigue lightening a bit. It is commonly caused by a misposition. However, please also have yourself checked out with some blood work to make sure you don't have a virus bothering you or a vitamin deficiency, or being anemic because you're not absorbing your vitamin B from your diet. There's many physical reasons that could cause it. So before assuming that it can be corrected by a meditative way, do have your physician check you out physically for a cause. Fair enough? There's all sorts of odd viruses around that do that as a side effect. Epstein-Barr, several of the hepatitises when they're low-grade chronic, Lyme's disease gotten from a tick. So you really want to do a proper physical rule out if you suffer from any kind of chronic or all-pervading fatigue, before you figure it's something going on with your practice and you can fix it with practice. I said to everybody, when you have a symptom, get it checked out. Just like if your car's making a funny noise, you take it in and get it checked out before the engine blows. car. Do the same thing. Other questions?
I was with a teacher for a long time, and then it came out that he abused his close students. And I'm still somehow confused. I still feel gratitude to him because he gave the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dzogchen. And at the same time, I cannot understand how one can teach Dzogchen and at the same time be either deluded or...
But you don't know what was actually going on. You only know what you have been told.
That's true.
That's hearsay about other people's experiences, which is what they thought of their sensory input. So you're really quite removed from whatever happened. We have a tendency to hear stories from others or make up stories ourselves and then put judgments upon them. That isn't real. It isn't not real. I highly recommend you go by your own experience. And if your experience with this teacher was useful, then honor them and keep it. Don't join the crowd, putting them down or putting them up if it doesn't match your experience. Does that help at all? Or does that just make it more confusing?
It's like when there are one or two stories, I would agree completely. But now they're like 20, 30.
Yes.
It gets
But
overwhelming.
those are the personal experiences of those people. We only experience our own karma. I've had some pretty crazy teachers. I had one chase me around with an axe trying to chop my head off. And he meant it at the time. I'd given him some reason for that. I honor his teachings greatly, even though the survival rate among his students was not high. The survivors did rather well in their practice. Yes, there are many stories about many teachers, but what happens is somebody has an experience, and then they talk about the experience. So they're telling the story of what they remember having interpreted their sensations as back then. And somebody else hears it and reinterprets their experiences in light of that story. And somebody else reinterprets their experiences in light of that story. I've had many teachers who have done many strange things. Some of them could be interpreted as abusive or not. Some of them could be interpreted as right and appropriate in that culture, but not in this one. Tibetans beat their children. It's culturally appropriate. Is a Tibetan abusing their children by beating them? Maybe so if they live in Holland. But in Tibet, they're simply behaving right and proper to that culture. So it's really hard to judge another person and say they are a good person or a bad person only by one's own perceptions, or even further, by the stories one hears about somebody else's perceptions, causing one to have many thoughts which confuse oneself. For our own practices, it is better not to fall into the trap of overthinking, but nonetheless to behave with common sense. Is this making any sense to you? Honor the teacher and what you got from them, and don't worry too much about whether they are abusive or not. Because that's going to be a point of view, and some people are going to think they are, and some people are going to think they aren't. And both of those thoughts are simply thoughts. And they're made of the same thing as all the other thoughts. So they are neither true nor not true, they're just thoughts.
I did feel I had to leave that group because I didn't want to be involved in this kind of situation.
I have a friend who was the Shabkar for the Dalai Lama. Shabkar, the body servant, the person who looks after. And he had to stop doing that because it was too close. And he started having thoughts judging the Dalai Lama. Sometimes judging him very up, sometimes judging him very down, depending on his actions that morning. And he realized that being this close didn't work for him. So he gave up the position of being the looker after and stood further away so that he could maintain his guru yoga. If you find yourself in a center or with a lama and you find that you are judging them, it is better to move further away from the lama so that you are not stimulated to do that. Helping? Keep going, because this is an important conversation for the West.
If you also have, I feel you have the responsibility to try to stop someone if someone is harming other beings. If I would just say, oh, it's...
How would you stop them?
Well, I wrote a letter to him. I wrote a letter to the organization.
Saying...
And I stopped donating money to them.
Okay.
Because that was what they all said. Oh well, it's just your perception. But that can also be an excuse. When there
Yes,
is
it can.
harm happening.
Yes, that's true.
Which is why I tell all the women that a lot of Tibetan lamas will sleep with you if they have the chance. If you don't want to sleep with them, don't be alone with them. That's pretty simple.
But the behavior of someone has nothing to do with the lessons you have to learn.
No.
I mean, when I think that somebody is very pure, and then I think that pureness, I want to learn something, and afterwards I feel that he's doing things that I won't get into my mind, but that has nothing to do with what I have to learn.
No, it doesn't. You have to learn not to listen to your thoughts and believe them. If you had an experience, to write a letter is appropriate. But I don't quite get writing a letter about someone else's experience. They should write the letter. Yes?
No, I find it a bit difficult. This what comes up in my mind is like it's going about the issue good and bad, and then you can relativize everything, maybe, like it's your perception, and I feel, and maybe you can say this is Western, but then I am Western, so
Yes.
that's my experience or what I feel right now. I think you can also stand up for other women. That's what I feel. If I know, I'm not in that situation, but let's say I know a few people who have this experience. It's
How would you stand up for them?
not like what she did maybe, or have a conversation, or bring the topic up, or I don't agree with just leave it be, and I think there are so many issues. There are so many, and of course it's like you said. First, have the right, be aware of your actions and don't be about the cultural things. But but there are so many issues, like in the church, in the Buddhism, in so many.
Religions do get kind of messy.
Yeah, so I think it's a real issue. It's not only like, okay, it's perception, it's
Is it only your own responsibility to react on what is happening to you, or do you have responsibility for other people as well? That's the main question, I think.
I see where you are coming from as a Westerner.
It's harming the image of Tibetan Buddhism I can see around us now. It was popular, like, if I, for instance, in my working place, I can see a shift now, like from maybe 10 years ago, people were like open to Tibetan Buddhism, and because of what happened in Shambhala and in other organizations, now people are kind of wary.
And Tibetans have a very, very different attitude towards sex than Christians.
Yeah.
They see absolutely nothing wrong with sex.
I don't know if it's about sex per se. It's about it's
And they see nothing wrong with power.
yeah, power dynamics are completely different as well.
They see nothing wrong with power dynamics.
True.
It's a different culture.
True. No.
It's culture, not Dharma.
So then the students who are unaware and are coming for guidance should be more aware about these differences than the master.
I think everybody who wants to take guidance from another culture should spend a while studying anthropology.
True.
I also think that the Tibetans should be a little bit more aware of Western culture,
Yeah.
because we are creating some cross-cultural messes.
Yeah. True.
Yes, in the back?
If I might suggest, there is a book by Alexander Berzin, an American Buddhologist, and he covers, the book title is The Wise Teacher and the Wise Student, something like this. And he covers everything what you were talking about cultural differences, about how to behave and how to. He's done a lot of studies.
Yeah, I have not read that. Do sort of notice, for example, the English believe in fairness. It is one of the deepest things in British culture. They absolutely believe in it. The Tibetans do not believe in fairness. They say when you bring up the subject, we have never seen fairness. How can we believe in it? We've never seen such a thing exist. There are differences, but understand that the differences are cultural, not Dharma. From my generation, we had to learn within the Tibetan culture. There weren't a lot of Western teachers available. Now there are, who understand Western culture, because if you are not raised in a culture or come to it really young and really thoroughly, you will miss bits. When I think in Tibetan, I have a completely different set of rights and wrongs than when I think in English. I see how much this is causing problems in the Western Dharma community, because many Tibetans are behaving according to Tibetan rights and wrongs, which are hierarchical, which are sexual, and which have absolutely no belief that fairness is even something that exists in the universe, because they've never seen it exist anywhere. As they often try to teach Westerners, there are any number of oopses. Also, Westerners commit themselves to a teacher way faster than a Tibetan would ever do that. And the first meeting and they're all in. without even knowing them. Traditional is a minimum of 3 years of following that teacher and seeing how they behave, of asking around about them and really getting to know things before deciding whether or not the personality of that teacher is such that you want to become closer. Because there is the Buddha nature, which we all have, and there is the personality, which we all have. And personalities can be thorny, bumpy. This is or that. They can be paranoid. They can be all sorts of things, but it's just the personality.
You mean a light person can have a bad personality?
Yes. Not a bad personality, they can have a unique personality. Some of which may be some things which to you think are bad. Like they may not be fair.
Yeah, okay, that is more value, because you say, okay, that a light person can be a criminal.
Well, sure.
Or prostitute, it says in the Tantra.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, why not, yeah. Because I think difference, I think, okay, it has to be a good person to be enlightened, but
That's not the correct answer, or that's not the... Enlightened is totality. It's not what you think of as good and what you think of as bad. That's your culture.
I just think about this topic that what I see people around me and people who are interested about Buddhism, that people have such a romantic idea, like foreign cultures and foreign religions, and they say, yeah, because a lot of priests raped children and a lot of misbehave in the Catholic Church, that is not, but then they're in the East, and that is like they're thinking they are so pure, so nice. And we totally forget sometimes that every religion, every political party, everything is made by human, and it's a human nature that it's like have moral and immoral things.
Yes.
It's belong above of that, and yes.
I have any number of bad habits. Please do not copy my bad habits. Look where I'm pointing. Who cares if I have bitten cuticles or a bad manicure? Look where I'm pointing.
But I would care if you abuse people. So for me, that's.
Suppose I were sleeping with 6 women in here. Would I be abusing them?
Now that depends. If it's let's say there are some morals, and you can say it's all cultural, but like say killing, okay, and still you can say what are the circumstances, but you can say
What are the circumstances?
Yeah, then you can ask, but still there is a moral.
But it's not what we think it is.
No, maybe not. No.
morality is not counting in getting enlightened anyway.
Morality is one of the 6 paramitas. But the rules of morality are not about good and bad. They're about, like the natural law of gravity, the natural law of karma. What kind of action creates a benefit and what kind of action creates negativity, scrunching, tightening. And you don't know until the entire action plays out. Speaking of personalities and criminals, I've never known my Lama to ever cross a border without believing he's smuggling something. Sometimes it really isn't something illegal, but he thinks it is. And why would you cross a border if you weren't smuggling something? That's Kompa, not Tibetan, Eastern Tibetan nomad.
But then I have a question. Like yesterday, you said it's bad luck. You gave an example when you let a monk or nun break their vow.
Yes.
That's you can say. Is that morality or what?
That is not bad evil. That has negative results karmically on the participants. It's not evil. Running with scissors is not evil, but it is probably going to do you some harm if you keep it up. Like that. You cannot translate Gewa and Dikpa into sin and virtue. The meaning is different. Anything that is bad in one situation might be good in another situation.
But then you could look at the results. If a teacher behaves...
But the results aren't done. Those people who may have thought they were abused, wait until they complete their lives to see if there was benefit or not.
Which doesn't mean that they have to like the situation.
No.
So does it mean a teacher can never be abusive?
No. It means that a teacher will manifest their personality.
Mostly also according to the students, right?
Mostly according to the students. However, that doesn't mean a teacher can't be in error in their judgment of something and act on the misperception and cause damage. All actions we perform as sentient beings, we perform because it seems like a good idea at the time. Even when one does something very stupid. One does it because, well, one thinks in that moment that it's okay to do that. That there will be gain or benefit from doing that. And you know in your own life that there have been any number of times where you have been mistaken about this. And you have performed an action that led to not gain, to harm. Yes.
Sin has nothing to do with karma.
No. Sin is Christian.
I have to change my mind a little bit.
If you feel that you need to follow a teacher who behaves and appears very pure, I wish you luck in finding one. It is probably best if you choose a dead one.
And with good reputation.
Yes. That doesn't mean that you go along with everything blankly that your teacher does. If you see your teacher about to step out in front of a car in England because they look the wrong way and they're used to being in America, you grab them back. I got my teacher kidnapped once. Arranged it. He wouldn't go to the doctor. He was sick. I called his teacher. And he got a couple of compas to kidnap him and take him to the doctor.
And then he came with the axe, or not?
That was a different teacher. He came with the axe because he caught me with his wife. If you want somebody pure as the driven snow, this is not the person you want. Yes.
It's funny because I have always the best experience with my teacher when I'm not with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's guiding me when I'm at home. When
Yes.
I'm with him, I cannot feel the guidance.
Then perhaps you need to stay a distance away. They say a teacher is like a fire. If you get too far away, you get cold. Your practice loses its inspiration. If you get too close, you get burned. They start stepping on you with their feet of clay. So you really have to pay attention and adjust your personal distance from the teacher. Westerners, in their initial enthusiasm, sometimes get too close and then get stepped on by feet of clay. You know the line, feet of clay, from the old myth.
It doesn't occur in Dutch, and there's no equivalent.
There's a Greek myth about a great hero who had a head of...
Icarus and Daedalus.
Yes.
They're flying so close to the sun.
No.
No, it's a different one.
He had a head of silver and arms of gold and a torso of steel, but he had feet of clay. So when another hero wanted to kill him, he just broke his feet. It's an old Greek myth.
Hebben we dat wel? Oh, we hebben dat wel. Oké.
Okay, you do have it in this culture. So pay a lot of attention to how close personally you choose to get to a given teacher. Stay far enough away that you don't get burned, but close enough that you get inspired. It's your responsibility to figure out the proper distance. Because the teachers are people. You will never see a Lama without a personality. And if you get close, you're likely to trip over that personality, especially if it's one formed in a culture other than your own. We tend to be very judgmental in many Western cultures. In Holland, my understanding is that people do not wish to say loud hongs in an apartment building for fear of disturbing the neighbors. This is your culture where it is right and proper to take into account how the neighbors might feel about your actions. This would not dawn on a person in India. It wouldn't even occur to them that someone might think that way. So if an Indian guru played their conch in the middle of the night, they would do that. And you would think poorly of them in Holland for doing that. It's a cultural dissonance. However, I will say that because of the cultural differences, it is the responsibility of us older women to tell the younger women that many lamas are horny bastards, and that this includes monks. And it is your responsibility not to end up with a monk. And it is your responsibility to figure out which one is really a monk and which one is lying. It will actually serve you better to not place yourself alone in the room of a Lama who you do not wish to have sex with, be you male or female, unless you happen to know that their preference is for whatever you aren't. And then don't be too sure. Does this make any sense to you about the cultural stuff? I know there's a Me Too movement in this Western culture.
Not in Tibet.
No, not at all. You're also going to run into the fact that it is considered seductive in India, and therefore in Tibetans who were raised in India, for a woman to say no. It is a seduction technique. Oh, no, 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 I'm a good girl. I wouldn't. This is supposed to be sexy and seductive. In India, not in Kham. So a Khampa's going to hear no. But if they were raised in India, they might think you're just flirting. Oops. However, if you punch them in the nose, they'll know you mean it. I know this is a digression from this teaching, but it's a topic that's really up for Westerners, so we can digress there. So, young women, do be aware with lamas, male and female. I'm Western enough that I've made a rule not to become intimate with my students, because it really confuses Westerners. With my Western students. Different story with my Tibetan students. Different culture. I can behave according to their culture. But there are other Western teachers who may not live by that rule. So just be very clear. If you go alone to a teacher's room and maybe have a beer with them, it means that you're open to it if they are. If you're not, don't do that signal. Fair enough? And guys, you too. Because some teachers prefer guys, both the male ones and the female ones. Any other questions on this topic, or we will go back to another?
I have one question.
Yes.
Because you were speaking about paramita of
Morality.
Can you explain a little bit more about what that encompasses?
It's got nothing to do with good and evil.
No.
It has to do with karma push-pull. Those actions which cause expansion, openness, relaxation in the most sentient beings, or the most intensely, generally will lead to the results of gewa, good karma. Those actions which cause confusion, constriction, stress, which increase that in the mandala, not just in you, will generally lead to digpa, negative results. That's just a rule of thumb. But basically, don't kill, right? But if your child has a serious bacterial infection, running a very bad fever, and is in danger, will you give them antibiotics?
Yes.
But you're killing all those microbes. Don't steal. Don't actually, literally, don't take what has not been offered. But if I see a 3-year-old with a box of matches, I'm going to take it. Because it is dangerous to them to have that. And they're going to feel that I'm stealing it from them. Because I took it not fairly, but because I'm bigger and can. Not to lie. So when your wife comes to you with the new dress that she's been saving up for a month and says, "Do I look fat in this?" And she does.
Yeah, that's a difficult
So difficult,
So you really do need to see that Even though there are rules, they're situational.
But is his intention, in this case, the most important thing?
It is one of the most important
I would
things.
say sorry to these animals that I'm killing, and I have no choice.
Yeah, but you're still killing them and there will still be a negative result.
But not with intention to kill them just for fun.
You'll still get a negative result. You'll get less of a negative result. Karma has to have three aspects to fully engage: intention, deed, and done to. If all of these three aren't engaged, the karma is only partial. It's not as strong. If two of these three are going towards relaxation and one of these is going towards constriction, there is more good results than bad results, but there's still both. Karma is not fair. It has nothing to do with what you deserve. If a good man and a bad man step off a cliff, they will fall and hit the bottom at exactly the same rate because the law of gravity doesn't care. We have taken so many of the concepts in Buddhism and Christianized them in the way we think about them. Oops. Yes, if you kill microbes by taking a medicine which will do that, you are creating Gelugpa, but you are caring for your body, which as a tantric practitioner is creating Gewa, and you are perhaps saying manis for those dying bugs, which is also Gewa. She'll get a bit more Gewa than Gelugpa coming to pass as a result of that. But you will get both. Which is why generally life is bumpy. Because both are actualizing. So there's high points and low points. In a given day, wonderful things happen to you and terrible things happen to you. You stub your toe, which in the moment of doing that is pretty terrible. A friend gives you a wonderful gift. You get a teaching that actually makes sense to you. You bump your elbow or spill your coffee on your shirt. This is manifestation of both Gewa and Gelugpa from the past. Karma.
It's also not that enlightenment is a calculation, Gewa minus Gelugpa, and if it's...
No, it is not. In the path of Sutrayana, you accumulate enough Gewa to be able to practice the tantric path, which includes bodhicitta. You can't do tantra without bodhicitta. It doesn't work right. In which you sneak around behind your conscious resistance using symbolism on your unconscious to be able to unravel your grasping, holding patterns on what you believe is true and real. And so your mind-made reality dissolves for you, and you are able to see past it into what actually is. And to truly see isness as it is, in which the seer and what it sees are not separate, is enlightenment. And you don't have to be perfect to get it. You're all practicing because you want to improve yourself. Put it down. You're fine. If you saw who and what you really were, there is nothing you need to fix or make better, even if you're fucked up. That's dzogchen. To recognize the totality of yourself, your own true nature. To see your mind as it is, big mind, not little mind. To recognize your own true nature is the first vital point. It's what the pointing out instructions point at. Other questions? And it's a relaxation, not a grab. Not a bird dog pointing. It's not like pointing at total reality, the totality of yourself. It's like sliding into a hot bath and dissolving as water into water. Other questions? Nundro shakes loose a whole lot of this. Your belief in the solar system and a round world, if you do Nundro properly, you can let go of that. Your belief that you are not a Buddha and are on some level all fucked up, by doing prostrations, you can let go of that. Your belief that you're not good enough to be enlightened. By doing Vajrasattva, you can let go of that. Your belief that you are an individual entity. By the practice of refuge and guru yoga, you can let go of that. Guru yoga is not about worshiping a person. Guru yoga is about opening your heart to your teacher's heart so that the fourth wong can go in, so that they can show you telepathically what they're pointing at that doesn't go in words. It doesn't matter about the personality, the shape of the finger, whether fingernails are scruffy and cracked or with a fine manicure painted chartreuse, pale green. It's where it points. Trungpa Rinpoche, you've all heard of Trungpa Rinpoche. He slept with everybody. He drank and smoked everything. And he loved clothing and jewelry and fine trappings, and he spent all his offerings on getting that stuff. And all his students tried to copy that. And they slept with each other, all of them. And they drank everything, and they smoked everything. But one of his students happened to be a nun. Oh, and they dressed very fancy, too. But one of his students was a nun. She couldn't get dressed up because she had robes and vows. She couldn't drink alcohol. And she was a celibate nun. She couldn't have sex. So instead of trying to copy the shape of his finger, which was his personality, she looked where he was pointing. I'm referring to Pema Chodron. Can you see that? With your teacher, or the teacher you were with, don't worry too much about whether they're sleeping with everyone and whether they're doing it in a fair way, an unfair way, an abusive way, a playful way, whether they're beating up on their students with their fists or not beating up on their students with their fists. Don't worry about that so much. You just follow where the finger pointed for yourself, and don't worry too much about the finger. And if you want to take a young girl who's headed towards that teacher aside and say, you need to know that there are these problems, and you need to really make your decisions according to having your eyes open, not closed here, then do that. That's probably more help than writing letters to him, which he may or may not read, and may or may not have Nan talk about, and I don't know the guy, so I can't say anything, but if it's who I think it is, I have great respect for him because I got some great teachings from him once, long ago. As for the rest of it, I wasn't there. And anyway, he's nowhere near as crazy as Lama Chogyal. Chog Salo. I sometimes refer to a teacher I had once called Nine-Fingered Chogyal, who I take as the example of, man, did that guy have a personality. Man, he gave good teachings on working with emotions. You had no choice when you were with him. He liked emotions. He would inspire many. And he did not have a preference between good emotions, quote, good and bad emotions. Any emotions were fuel for the fire. Yeah, this is the guy that chased me around with the axe, which caused me to have very strong emotions while I crouched on top of the shed, refusing to come down. I'm going to offend you all. And you all too. There is a Tibetan saying, dzogchen is like anal sex. If you don't relax, it won't go in. Humor is the lube. So will you please attempt while practicing Dharma not to take yourself and each other all that seriously, and to have a sense of humor, because it will go in ever so much better. All the teachings. Yes.
Thanks for the loop.
It's important. You'll be needing that. This whole conversation is actually relevant to what I've been pointing at here. Your holding belief systems are the smudge on your glasses that keep you from seeing your own nature the way it really is. There's what you think enlightenment is, or should be, or will be. That's in the way of you seeing what it is. There's what you fear it might be. That's in the way too. To perceive your own true nature, pure as it always has been, katak, primordial purity, innate unfuckupableness, to directly perceive that naked as it is. You don't need to shove away your belief systems, but you can't keep grasping them. You have to let go. Here's another exercise that does that. Project your attention into the external fields of space, vast as the sky, and attentively watching the nature of your mind, see if it moves. What this means is imagine the bigness of the universe. Picture it in your mind's eye. Hear the song of the galaxies as they race through infinite open awareness. Notice the sixth dimension of micro and macrocosmic. In the sutras it is said that our entire universe, all of it, is a part of a single grain of pollen on a single stamen in a lotus held in the hand of a macrocosmic Buddha. And the universe in which that macrocosmic Buddha holds that lotus, that entire universe with its attendant planets and worlds and galaxies and mountains and trees, is itself a single dust mote in a sunbeam, in a macro universe, and so on to infinity in the direction of bigger. And if you were to go smaller, beyond what our current electron microscopes can see, down and down and down past the quarks and the gluons, and all the other subatomic particles, smaller and smaller and smaller, you would find entire universes in a single atom. Stretch your imagination in the usual 4 directions, and into the macro and micro, and across the dream time and the bardo of becoming. Stretch it as big as you can get it. Imagine this. As far as Dharmakaya, as far as your imagination extends, Dharmakaya, innate Buddha nature, extends. When you extend your imagination to this vastness, does your mind move? Look and see. Imagine the swirling galaxies, components of a subatomic particle somewhere else. In the bigger. When you imagine this, does your mind move or change in any way to imagine this? Or is this imagination simply a thought that arises in mind and dissolves in mind and has no effect on the innate and natural infinitude of mind? when you examine imaginary universe upon universe, by your own experience seeing that to think this or that, to imagine this and that, no matter how vast, no matter how big, does not make your mind any bigger or any smaller. Change is nothing, moves nothing, but is simply made of thought that arises in mind and dissolves in mind. When you see this by your own experience, that the mind does not move, retract your attention and concentrate upon a point within. Look carefully for the thinker of your thoughts. Find where your imagination is residing. The imagination that imagines galaxies, multiverses, dream times, bardos, infinite time, past and future. Where's all that coming from? Is it a projector that projects it outwards? Is it projected inwards? All these imaginary thoughts that describe the universe, this way or that way, where are they coming from? Where were your thoughts before you thunk 'em? Don't intellectualize this. Feel around for it. You who is always thinking, feeling, perceiving. Who thinks, feels, and perceives? Turn around and gaze into your own eyes, metaphorically speaking. Find the thinker of your thoughts. When you discover by your own self, by direct observation, not 'cause hearsay and not 'cause I told you, that there is no entity responsible for your thought patterns. There is no thinker of them, their thoughts. They arise of their own accord, according to the karmic clump, dissolving in the very moment they arise, leaving no mark, no footprints in the trackless sky. Don't take my word for that. Go have a look. I might be lying. We all know I'm no better than I should be. Better go have a look for yourself and see what's true. Who thinks your thoughts? Who are you? When you don't find any thinker of the thoughts, no entity responsible for the thought patterns, look carefully for the color and the shape of your mind. Is your mind blue? Is it round? The thinker of your thoughts, the mind itself, what is it? Don't think about this. Look, have you ever had the experience of like doing some work on your car engine and having one of the bolts, the nuts stuck that won't turn? Well, you know, if the only tool you have is a screwdriver, you're not going to get that bolt off, that nut off. You're going to bark your knuckles trying to bang on it with a screwdriver. Ever do that? Because that's all you had and you really wanted to get the nut off so you could completely disassemble the whatever. Put it down, go get a wrench. Because you'll never get it off with a screwdriver. Your intellect in this case is a screwdriver. And what you have stuck is the bolt of self-belief, of self-focusedness, of self-ishness. Go get a wrench. Feel around for it. When you see by your own efforts and your own perception, not by intellect. You want to do intellect, you want Ochen teachings, not Dzogchen teachings. Madhyamika. This is Dzogchen. Intellect doesn't work on Dzogchen. You can't understand Dzogchen. The only thing worse in Dzogchen than a student who thinks they understand Dzogchen is a student who does understand Dzogchen. Because they miss the point. Intellect don't go there. Intellect is linear and algebraic. If A equals B and B equals C, A will equal C. That's true of numbers, not of people. When you see an object, who sees it? When you think of an umbrella, who's thinking that? Look and see. Don't give the habitual answer. Go look and see if that's the true answer or not. When you feel anger, anxiety, embarrassment, whatever, who's feeling that? Where is it? What's its shape? What is the feeler of the feeling? And what is the shape, color, or characteristic of that feeler? Follow it home. When you arrive by following your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions home to that emptiness that has neither color nor shape, Look and see if it has a middle or an edge. Look and see if it has an inside or an outside. Certain that center and edge are the same, finding no distinction between inside and outside, you arrive at total presence, which is neither here nor there, and vast as the sky. Mind seeing. By virtue of its all-penetrating freedom, this total presence has no center or edge, no inside or outside. It is innocent of all partiality and knows neither blockages nor barriers. This all-penetrating intrinsic awareness is as vast as the expanse of space, and all the experiences of samsara, and all the bliss of nirvana arises in and as this, like rainbow light in the sky. And all its diverse manifestation is but a play of mind. And all your beliefs, your rights and wrongs, your ises and isn'ts, your hopes, your fears, dissolve in the rising sun of awareness like dew on the grass. Did I ever tell you about Dorji's old board?
Yes.
Dorji's old board. Yeah, it's an old board that Dorji had. Anybody not hear that story? There's enough of you, mind if I tell it again real quick? So once there was an old board up in the caves. And the old board belonged to one Lama. And it was a really fine old board. It was like this long, good-sized old board. Thick, strong, wide, smooth. Was an excellent old board. Anyway, this particular Lama was not using the old board, so he lent it to a friend in another cave who was using it as a table or something. Meanwhile, when this Lama was leaving, he left quite suddenly, and he told another Lama that he could have the old board when he left, which was currently in the possession of this other Lama. So it arose that there was some contention about the ownership of the old board, since the owner was gone, and the guy who had the old board didn't want to relinquish the old board. It was a wonderful old board. And I believe it was Dorji, who had been told he could have the old board, did really want the old board. So arguments arose as to who got the old board. And this became so intense that the cave community of yogis broke into factions as to who got the old board. And one day at puja, when we were at ceremony, it looked like it was about to come to fisticuffs over possession of the old board. Now, I was a young Westerner, full of myself as young Westerners are. And so I said to Dorji and I can't remember who was the other combatant, guys, what are you doing? You are these great yogis that everyone respects, these wonderful renunciate Dharma practitioners living in the caves above Solpema. What are you doing fighting over an old board? And Dorji turned to me. You, Westerner, I know your people. Your people fight over ideas and feelings, and you can't even sit on them. Went back to the argument, having shut me up very effectively, because he was right. We do, you know, fight over ideas and feelings. And nary a one of them will hold water.
So how did they end up resolving it?
I think Dorji got it.
Who agrees?
And the reason I think so is because there's another story about Dorji and the old board, but that doesn't fit here. That's in a Mahamudra teaching. I tend to use it to illustrate a point. Dorji got enlightened this year. It was really nice. In the bardo, he sat Tudom, which is a sign of being enlightened in the first bardo, and we were all very happy for him. They sent me photos of Dorji and Tudom. Mm-hmm.
Who got the board after him?
I was going to check and see who had it, and see if I could just get it as a souvenir. But since I wasn't there when Dorji died, and since last I saw it was being a table in his cave, I'm not sure who got it. It's a really good board, so even though there's now a chip out of it, somebody would have gotten it.
Was Dorji the one with the X?
No, the one who chased you with X. No.
Oh, okay.
No, that was nine-fingered top gel.
Oh, okay.
He lost the finger, was it with the X? He hit himself.
No, he lost the finger by wrapping it with an oil-soaked rag and burning it as a butter lamp, doing Kora of the Bodh Gaya Stupa and letting it burn down slowly. He was into feelings. That had a lot of feeling in it. He wasn't just into giving his students feelings. He had them himself, too. And he encouraged them in himself, too. You see, the Tibetans say, a little bitty pile of wood, a few twigs just makes a little flame. Big old pile of wood makes a really big bonfire. Feelings are valuable. They're considered the fuel of the flame. So if students are working with feelings and they're any good at it, encouraging them to feel can be helpful. And it really doesn't matter what they feel. It's the intensity that matters, not the label or the name. For all those of you who were up doing that last teaching, where were we? On working with feelings. which is the prerequisite for doing the inner body Rushen. Not the outer body Rushen, the inner body Rushen, which I haven't taught you guys yet, because you haven't all finished working with feelings. And if you can't work with feelings by the time you get to that practice, you'll do yourself a mischief, because it makes them stronger. Questions so far? Yes?
Can you talk a little bit more about this intensification of feelings?
When you do the practice that dries up the karma for being reborn in the 6 realms, as the chi, as the chakras that these practices are done with, unravel their twists, the chi running through them makes noise. Those noises are often experienced as feelings. And since you're working with the 6 realms, you're working with the 6 categories of feeling, such as fear and anger. Get stronger, you get more scared, more angry. Avarice, you want more stuff. Ignorance, you start wanting nothing to do with Dharma or Dharma practice. You just want your beer. And ordinariness. And you're going to hide with your head under your arm. The urge to do this, these feelings all get really strong while you do that practice. So if you don't know how to see the emptiness of your feelings and how to strip them naked so that you can do that while you're feeling them, you're going to get yourself into a tizzy. Do you have a word for tizzy in Dutch?
Koekwous.
Ja.
Koekwous. Word je een beetje koekwous.
A tizzy. Other questions?
The lecture you gave in where you were.
Yes?
Can we see that as well or not?
Yes.
Or, yeah?
You may.
Oh, okay.
You have my permission.
Okay.
Now, where it is and who's got it, you're going to have to deal with. You know, and in what format and where how you're going to get it. But I'm okay with you seeing that. If you ever want to do the inner body Rushen, which is an excellent practice that brings you closer to dzogchen, then you need to practice that for some time. However, if it doesn't float your boat, you don't need to practice it at this time. Float your boat. You can't do all the practices all the time. So you need to pick the ones that you're going to do now and do them until they work, and then do the next ones. Of course, you can't do that practices until you can see the empty nature of your thoughts while thinking, which means you actually have to have caught the pointing out, which I've been giving this whole day. And you have to practice it until you actually glimpse the indescribableness of your own mind. Then it's possible to practice the working with feelings. Without that, it's like I'm giving you instructions to rub your tummy and pat your head while riding a bicycle. Please, take the time to get good on the bicycle first. Otherwise, you'll do yourself a mischief. Other questions? You need only look out from the motion, look out from, not in at. Identify with the motionless space of intrinsic awareness. Stand there and see all arising phenomena, the experience of each moment, arising illusory like the reflection of the moon in water, to know the impossibility of dividing appearance from emptiness. You see, we start as a clump of phenomena, a personality made up of past experiences, ideas, belief systems, feelings, sets of perceptions, and we stand as the personality that answers to our name. And we look at the view, tawa, mind. This is an error. You are disassociating from your mind. So you have to get past this first error where there's you, the personality, who glimpses the totality of mind, as if you are not that, but looking at that. You have to go further than that. That's not enough by itself. You have to recognize that that totality of mind, that infinite open awareness, is what is looking out. The innate vitality of that, the perceiver, the awareness, the lucidity. You are that. Seeing all phenomena arise in emptiness as emptiness and dissolve in emptiness. And you yourself are that very phenomena, that very emptiness. The vitality of arising. Enough words. If I say more words, it's not going to go in, is it? You're full. The key is to practice. You can't tightly not disassociate. You can't go, I'm not going to disassociate, and try really hard to do that. That won't work. You actually have to relax into it. 360 degrees around, not pointing at anything. Open your attention, relax into intrinsic awareness as intrinsic awareness to effectively meditate. Sit for a moment, try it. Gewandi Nyurdudal Che Sala Goparshu. Remember, we're all in this together. All us Buddhas of the 4 times, all us sentient beings of the 3 realms. The bugs, the microbes, the birds, the cows, the horses, the fish in the sea, other planets, other worlds, other galaxies, microcosmic, macrocosmic, other dimensions throughout the 6 categories of place, the 6 realms. All the aliveness, interconnected, interpenetrating, alive together. Nothing is held singularly. For there are no true singularities of individual, interactive, interpenetrating, changing each other, constantly changing phenomena, thoughts, feelings, perceptions. Any benefit that has arisen from the direct perception of natural mind, such as we have accomplished in these hours, may all Buddhas know themselves. May all sentient beings recognize all Buddhas. So be it. So we are on chapter 8, song 8, and we're on the 2nd page of it, if someone is keeping track for this place. If any of you at the end here would like to adopt a yogi and merge your practice with theirs so that the benefit of their being in retreat all the time is shared, I have some for you. You see, about the cost of supper and a beer for one person keeps a yogi in retreat for a month. Those of you who are at a time of your life where making a lot of retreat is impractical because of where you are in your career or raising your family, under those circumstances, you may wish to have help with your practice, in which case you're welcome to adopt a yogi. Some people here already have one. I have a few pictures, and I have more that I don't have pictures for. Diana, I probably pronounced that wrong.
No, that's fine.
Has the pictures to show you and a sign-up sheet if you want to do this. It usually involves saving up $20 a month for 6 months and then sending it to the yogi and they write to you. All I do is make the introduction. There is no organization to skim the cream off the top. You send it directly to the yogi in retreat and become friends with them. If you come out to Solpema to make retreat, you then have a friend. If you don't, you have help with your practice. So those who want to do that, while I'm doing the blessings here, catch her, Deanna, and the yellow folder, and she'll show you how it works.
Let me go towards the back where the table is. That's an easy stop for anyone to catch me if you want to know a bit more about it and maybe sign up.
Yeah, she's got... Who are you sponsoring?
I was very bad with the names.
It's
We could just call her
Annie,
Anila for us.
okay, Annie Chuden.
Yeah.
The one that's always in retreat that I never see. Who?
Know the picture and just call her Anila. It's just wonderful. It's a great feeling to know that you're contributing with an amount of money that for a lot of us, not all of us obviously, so if you're not in that position, obviously this is not your moment, but if you can afford it, to just, save about 20 euros a month, then once every 6 months you wire it by Western Union, and the next day you usually get, a picture of your Anila or your yogi looking all happy and having that money, and just knowing that keeps them going, that they can continue to do the practices that they are ready to do and want to be doing, and that was just the one missing link for them to be able to keep doing that. That gives such a happy feeling.
Before we started introducing and making pairs and Westerners and yogis, some of them would work all summer breaking rocks on the roads to get enough money to get teachings or make retreat in the winter. And some of them would go around begging, and you have to go really far and you get just a little palmful of rice from each farmer. And then you walk on to the next farm and the next farm until you have enough to eat a little rice and maybe some beans for the month. Needless to say, their health was not good in those days. So most of them, not all, but many of them, are sponsored. And so they make retreat in the high mountains in the summer instead of breaking rocks on the road. It's hard to break rocks on the road when you're old. And they don't have to go begging. They can just continue their practice in their caves. So it's a really nice win-win for everybody. Those of you who want to come out to Sopema and see the place and meet your friend and maybe do some practice. It's a PowerPoint. Practice is strong there. I'm there in October and November. And with any luck, my teacher will give some teachings. He's one of the last dzogchen masters trained in Old Tibet. He's in his late 80s now. And he no longer travels. But some of you may know him. And if you are not mobile or cannot travel, some of his teachings are up on the website, on my website. I've left you cards if you want to find me again. That has email and website on it. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, and for those of you who have been practicing dzogchen for a long time, next year we will be doing the outer body Rushen for 11 days. We have a place in Poland. That's one hell of a practice. It helps you go from the doing of meditation to the not doing. If you are not practicing dzogchen for a number of years, you aren't even stuck there yet, so it's not useful to you. And that's okay. We only have room for 30 people. And they'll be coming from all over the world because we only do this every few years. But I just wanted to let you all know that it was happening for those of you who are to the point of benefiting from it in your practice.
Anyone interested in more information about that in time can contact Sasha. So yeah, ask him for contact details if you like.
Okay, bonkies. Yes.
If during the bonkies, people already want to start cleaning up a little bit, maybe putting cushions to the back.
And I'm just sitting here grinning at you. See how spaced I got.
Blankies and bonkies.
Absolutely. Bonk away.
Er hangen kattaks aan de kachel.
Anyway.
And you can also offer an
Thank you
envelope
for-
to Lama if you.
Oh, you okay?
Heart.
Maybe you had a hard head.
I think so.
Maybe it went in.
Thank you for the